Well, hello YouTube, it's me, Fortmaster, and welcome to a new reaction, and this is the Jockington Conspiracy by Ragenade. And, well, this was a request I got from my Discord server. A little awkward now, but this was suggested by Mort Bobius on my Discord server. And, you've probably already seen the video, but, but shortly after I got the request to watch this video, another video, also called The Jockington Conspiracy, came up in my, video suggestion feed. And I ended up doing a reaction to that one first, because I got mixed up on as to which video was which, and I didn't realize I was actually doing a reaction to the wrong video until I was already editing it. So, we're here now. But yeah, so that previous video, that was much more, like, comedic in its tone, but it was pointing out, like, just how weird, like, Jockington is getting. Like, he was already sort of weird and wacky, kind of like, funny, odd character. But as the chapters have come out, his, like, speech patterns have been getting worse. While I was editing that video and looking for, like, a couple of comics that I wanted to include in it, I found a Reddit post of somebody pointing out that Jockington's colors have apparently, as of chapter 4, are duller than they were in chapter 1. So, is he actually turning into a goner? Is he actually turning gray? Like, what is going on with him? Again, like, no idea what could be happening with Jockington. Out of, like, all the characters that could potentially be important to the plot, Jockington was definitely not one of them. Which is weird considering the fact he does have a talk sprite. Though if you haven't known already, Jockington actually has 8 talk sprites for technically various emotions, but they're all literally just the same picture. So, I mean, again, knowing Toby Fox, this could just be one big joke, but at the same time, I don't put it past Toby Fox for to not be a joke. So, yeah, let's get into this video then. So yeah, of course, as always, original videos linked in the description if you haven't seen it for some reason. Corner video will lead to my Let's Play of the day, as well as in the top corner, I'm also going to be linking to the other Jockington Conspiracy video I did a reaction to first, just so you can hear some of my other thoughts that I was coming up with in that video. If you like this video or any other video that I make, I'd very much appreciate it if you gave the video a like and subscribe to my channel, because over 3/4 of the people that watch my videos aren't subscribed, and I'd very much like that to change, because my main goal is to hopefully hit 10,000 subscribers sometime in the near future. But yeah, with all that out of the way, let's get this thing started then, shall we?
Hi, I'm Ragenade. Deltarune Chapter 3 and 4 introduced a lot of new interesting characters and developed a lot of older characters as well, which is why this is my second video on Jockington. I recently made a video proposing the idea that Jockington could be a goner, one of those rare fun value event characters from Undertale. I'll be talking about some new evidence for that theory, so it's probably best if you go watch that video first, but I will be going over what I said in that video when I need to, but just not in too much depth. Since that—
It's okay, it's okay.
That video, there's been a lot of discussion about Jockington in the Deltarune community. I don't think that was really my doing, but in case it was, my bad. But even though I originally made that video as kind of a joke, I can't help but think that there's a little bit more merit to actually theorizing about this guy. There's a strange amount of evidence linking this so far inconsequential character to different important plot points that it's just kind of hard to ignore for me. So I'm coming back one last time to talk about this fucker. This is a conspiracy. One that might very well unravel the truth behind Deltarune's prophecy and maybe even its main villain. Probably not at all, so don't take this too seriously, but whatever. But just showing gameplay the entire time isn't gonna help. We need a good visual. Mike, the board, please.
Oh, okay, here we go.
Joke. That's right, assholes. I'm going full Andrew Cunningham this time. This is actually the corkboard hidden in Asgore's flower shop. He was never trying to find out what happened to Des, he was trying to figure out Jockington's true identity, which is why Toriel left him, because he's fucking insane. That's my Flower King. I want you to know that that line was originally, "That's my ex-husband," but I realized that makes it sound like I'm saying that Asgore is my ex-husband, and I realized I should probably change that. Anyway, this is the Jockington Conspiracy board. It's pretty simple to look at, things are connected by string, wow cool, truly an innovative design. So to start off on a familiar foot, let's return to the Goner-Jockington theory. To recap the important evidence from last video, in Chapter 2, Jockington foreshadows the way the Lancer fan club beats the Titan in Chapter 4. He says, "Life is a big ball game, and when the man is on the field, he does a big dunk. Try to be that dunk." This dialogue seems like nothing at first, except for
Again, the really odd pauses and commas and stuff like that.
maybe a Homestuck reference, as some people have pointed out, but the Titan in Chapter 4 is literally defeated by Susie dunking Chris into it. This is knowledge that Ralsei didn't even have before the battle, so why the hell does Jockington know? And the other major piece of evidence, Jockington's speech is suddenly way worse in Chapter 4. He was mostly coherent in Chapters 1 and 2, even if his dialogue was a bit weird. But did he have a fucking stroke overnight or something? But interestingly, there's another character that has way worse speech in Chapter 4, and it's this weird bird thing. The reason why that's important is that this thing was a Gaster follower and a Goner in Undertale. And considering it never had a counterpart in Undertale, we can assume that this is its counterpart, and because it's spouting weird cryptic bullshit, it's not too insane that they might be turning into a Goner again. So that's the important stuff from last video.
God, like, just imagine if being a Goner was contagious. But it's not like contagious between like people, it's contagious to like the alternate versions of yourself across the multiverse. So if like one of you is a Goner, like eventually like every single version of you becomes a Goner, and that is just terrifying.
Now, onto some new developments. Easily the piece of evidence I have seen the most people talk about in regards to Goner-Jockington since my last video is that he supposedly loses color in Chapter 4. This is actually super interesting and can be used to connect him to this Rudin in Castletown who literally knows the player's name and loses color as time goes on and is also theorized to be another Goner. So that's another pattern to look out for, right? Well, it would be. If it was true. The person who tweeted this came back a couple days later and admitted that they completely lied. But to make sure, take a look at this. Here are 2 screenshots from in-game, and here are all the color values. They are all the same, he's the exact same. I'm pretty sure the original person who tweeted this literally recolored Jockington because in their image it is different colors, but in-game it's not at all.
This is why you do research and just don't believe everything you see on the internet. Even before AI became a big thing.
I also want it to be known that I spent like 30 minutes using different screenshots to try to see if this was real before ultimately finding out that they replied and said that they lied afterwards. God damn it. So yeah, no, that evidence isn't real. They fooled a lot of people, so good job. Another thing that was very commonly brought up was the secret Jockington prophecy in the 3rd Sanctuary. In the 3rd Sanctuary, there's a climbing area that gives you the Princess Ribbon if you beat it, but in that area, there's a very specific area where you can fall down, and instead of just being brought back to the start of the room like normal, you'll actually fall into a different room. If you see here, there's a little hole at the bottom of the screen, and if you fall right there, you end up in another room with the Jockington grows the beard prophecy. This one is strange because there's like no real reason to repeat this one again. Especially because the original Jockington grows the beard prophecy is still there, but where it gets more interesting is what the NPC here says. In the original Jockington prophecy room, the NPC says, "Come 5 o'clock, the shadow will grow."
Yeah.
So saith our ancestors. That doesn't really seem to be more than a simple joke about a 5 o'clock shadow. Beard. But the NPC in the other room has much more ominous dialogue, saying, "Before the clock strikes midnight, the shadow will grow. Oh, the shadow will grow serpentine. Even when the clock ran back, the shadow was growing. A patch of shadow slithering on serpentine." This could also be a reference to a 5 o'clock shadow, given the allusions to clocks and shadows, but it also directly says midnight rather than anywhere really close to 5.
Yeah, that's, I mean, again, the previous one, that was very much, very blatant. That, I have a much harder time saying, oh, that's referring to 5 o'clock shadow when, 5 o'clock is not the time being referenced, it's midnight. And I've never heard of a midnight shadow before, unless it's like some sort of really vague way of describing just a full-on beard.
Also, the dialogue overall is just much more ominous and concerning. Even when the clock ran back, the shadow was growing. This doesn't seem to just be about a beard anymore. And if we're to interpret it with the idea of Jockington potentially becoming a Goner, then maybe it's saying that his fate is already sealed and cannot be changed no matter what we do. We've seen that our choices can directly save certain individuals from a terrible fate, like how if you recruit everyone in TV World, then Tenna doesn't die. He's still technically cleaved red by Blade, as the prophecy says, but he isn't dead. And if you recruit everyone in Chapter 4, then Jackenstein doesn't die either. But maybe Jockington cannot be saved.
That'd be sad if that was the case.
I'm just kind of saying shit. Something else I want to quickly bring up regarding Goner Jockington is these weird things that can be found in the Dark Sanctuary. I've seen some people say that they could be related to Jockington or even his Goner form, but even though it's a possibility, I don't really buy it. For starters, there are multiple of them in one room, and also even though Goner characters do have differences from their normal counterparts in terms of their sprites, they aren't this different.
Yeah, that's not Goner. That's like... I mean, again, I did see one version where I saw a comic somebody made where, like, basically, God, it's honestly thinking about it's kind of disturbing. But, like, again, that's like, again, honestly, the only thing similar is, like, shape. Like, there's no similarities, like, at all, honestly.
None of the Goners are weird, fleshy masses like this, and not to mention the fact that these aren't gray, unlike Goners. Maybe
black.
These could be related to Jockington, but I also don't think that's the case, because literally why? They look kinda similar, but what purpose would that have? I think these are just weird things here to make you feel uncomfortable. I don't think they're very important at all. Now I want to take a look at the Goner Jockington theory at a different angle, and try to determine why Toby would even write this if it's true. Why would Jockington, a character that so far is really not important at all, be a fucking Goner? Well, I actually think it would be an interesting way to properly introduce the concept of Goners, or introduce the impacts of a Goner. Toby likes to introduce concepts first with previously unimportant characters. We just recently saw this with Gerson, who, prior to Chapter 4, was literally only mentioned a couple times and was a rotting carcass, but now he's pretty important to Deltarune, not only because he was a mentor for Susie in Chapter 4, but also because he introduces the concept of Darkners patterned by the memory of a Lightner. I doubt Toby introduced this concept for one singular character, so
yeah, we're gonna
sorry
see.
Rudy, you're gonna drop dead at the festival or some shit.
Oh God, yeah, I mean, like, I really hope that's not true. At the same time, it does make the most sense narratively, unless they were, like, going to be pulling, like, something involving Des and the Knight, and Des actually being, like, straight up dead, and, like, the Knight being, like, a really messed up Goner made from her, or something like, and the Knight being, like, a really messed up Darkner made of her, or something like that. It's like, it's weird.
And I think something similar would happen with Goners. Toby wouldn't properly introduce Goners by instantly making Asgore or someone like that a fucking Goner. He'd probably make the first Goner we see a character that isn't super important, and that character, it would actually not be Jockington. Remember the bird creature in that Rudin? I think those two are actually much more likely candidates for the first Goners we see, if we're going to see Goners at all, of course. Remember, there's a chance that Goners aren't even going to be in the game and that we're just kind of saying shit
we're
right
reading
now.
it.
What?
Basically, as, you know, theorist communities usually do, we're reading too far into it.
Whatever. These characters are like the least important ever because no one ever fucking mentions them. I'm not sure if other characters even know they exist. So them being Goners would not change much in Deltarune's world, but it would be an interesting way to first introduce Goners. But because they wouldn't have any noticeable impact on the world by becoming Goners, the actual effects of becoming a Goner would still be a mystery, which is where Jockington comes in. Jockington is still not a super important character in the game, but he is more important than these other two, considering he's been mentioned outside of talking to him a couple times, and he's apparently really popular in Hometown for some reason. So even though he has no real importance to the story so far, him becoming a Goner would still have noticeable effects on Hometown because a character that was pretty popular there has suddenly just been wiped from existence. And then after that, I don't fucking know, man. We're introduced to Gaster, and he's a Goner or some shit. I don't know, I'm not Tony Phony. Hey, I'm adding this in after I already recorded the video because I didn't think of this before, but does anyone else find his dialogue in the school in Chapter 1 a little strange? I mean, it seems relatively normal, he's just explaining why he and Caddy are always partners, but what's interesting about this to me is the fact that Chris probably already knows all of this. Jockington is talking about gym class, and I'm assuming Chris was probably there for that, considering this class has like 9 people, so why wouldn't they be? Also, Jockington literally says, "You know that Jockington and Caddy are always partners." So Chris knows this. Why is Jockington explaining it again then?
I mean, again, that could literally just be, you know, Jockington's character. I mean, he seems pretty weird, so it could very well be that he's like unironically a person who in real life would say, as you well know, to something when he's talking to you about something that you actually know, you know. He's bad movie writing made manifest.
Well, at this point in the story, who wouldn't know why Jockington and Caddy are always partners?
Us, yeah.
Oh, God, he knows. Okay, this evidence is really loose and more or less based on the assumption that Chris does know why Jockington and Caddy are partners and that they were there. But fuck it, I'm including it anyway, I don't care. If you haven't played Deltarune before, you wouldn't know that Jockington and Caddy are always partners, and you wouldn't know their origin story. Jockington isn't explaining this to Chris, he's explaining it to you. Fast forward to chapter 5, where Jockington will be saying random bullshit, but then have you in capitalized red letters.
God,
so
no.
You know he's talking to you and not Chris for some reason. Why would Jockington know about the soul? I don't fucking know. Okay.
Again, you know, it might be just one of those things where, like, Jockington, like, of course, he's, like, really popular. We've been told this many times. But he, even before, you know, his speech starts getting really weird and bad in chapter 4, like, he's already kind of, like, weird and off, you know, not in the same wavelength as everybody else. How do we know Jockington just has, inexplicably has, like, weird, extra-dimensional, otherworldly knowledge of his universe, and just doesn't bother to, like, share it to other people, because, one, he's a jock and doesn't think it's important for other people to know.
In hindsight, this evidence probably isn't anything. I doubt Jockington actually knows about the player, but if he does, then that could kind of explain his gonerisms. I mean, look back at that Rudin in Castletown. They know the player's name, and by extension, probably the player, because, like, why else are they using the name that you entered in for yourself at the start of the game? And there is in color, potentially becoming a goner. So Jockington is starting to have signs of becoming a goner. It could make sense if he knows about the soul and the player's existence, and considering he knows about other random shit, maybe it's not too insane, I don't know. But again, this is most likely nothing. I just wanted to throw it in. Okay, back to the normal video. But that's all I have for Goner Jockington right now.
Okay.
It's longer than I thought it would.
Again, honestly, wonderful theory so far. Sad that the whole, you know, fact that that Jockington is losing his color was literally just fake. But at the same time, again, just, it is so weird.
Holy shit. So let's move on to the second part of the conspiracy and try to figure out what the hell this guy's connection to the prophecy even is. Why the fuck is Jockington in the prophecy? He's the only character fully named in the prophecy, considering it calls characters like Asgore, the Flower Man, and for other characters, it just uses their titles rather than their actual names, like Queen. What makes him so special? Probably the fact that he can unhinge his jaw. That's pretty damn cool. And does Jockington being in the prophecy literally solve Deltarune? Okay, let's just get into it. So, as previously stated, Jockington is in the Deltarune prophecy. His prophecy panel can be found in the first sanctuary and also in the third, as I mentioned earlier. His prophecy panel is pretty simple at first glance. It says Jockington grows the beard, and it has a picture of him shaped like the middle schooler cool S with a beard. And in both rooms, there's an NPC nearby that talks about shadows, except one of them is really ominous. Yeah, I already said that. At first, this seems pretty cut and dry, probably just a simple joke about how Jockington will grow a beard in a future chapter, or just in the future in general, whether or not it's during the events of Deltarune. But believe it or not, this could mean a whole...
Man, can you imagine that? Like, we always assume, like, we know the prophecy supposedly has everything written down. But can you imagine if it had literally everything written down? Like, it had literally all of time written down, including, like, everything involving, like, the roaring and stuff like that. Like, man, talk about, you know, intense.
A lot more than you may think. So let's talk about how it could very well solve the prophecy of Deltarune as we know it, and it also might prove what I said about Jockington having way more knowledge about the world of Deltarune than, like, literally anybody else. If we're to interpret this panel as Jockington growing a literal beard in the future, then this actually has some pretty strong implications about the weight of the prophecy and Deltarune as a whole, and it's entirely because of one singular fucking line he says at church. I am not kidding. If you talk to Jockington twice at church, he says, "For her, I go to the big church match as her substitute player. For me, she covered in hair always. We do what the other can." And if you can read past Jockington's deranged-ass speech here, you can probably pretty easily find out that he is saying that he is Caddy's substitute in sports, and she has a lot of hair. They do what the other can't. But isn't it a pretty specific thing to mention that Jockington can't grow hair?
I mean, it makes sense. He is a snake. And I mean, I may not be a biologist, but I'm fairly certain snakes are rather famous for not having any form of follicle growth. And I mean, granted, you can, like, monsters always kind of sidestep that line just a little bit. I mean, again, just kind of look at Undyne, given a, the fishwoman who has hair. But, again, there's always, like, the siren and mermaid angle you can kind of go with her. But again, that probably means that, as a snake monster, Jockington can't grow hair like a regular non-monster snake.
I wonder what it could be referring to. Oh yeah. Again, why the hell does he say this? He could have mentioned the fact that he doesn't have arms or something, but he specifically mentions the fact that he cannot be covered in hair. This is the second...
I mean, you never know. I mean, with everything going on with Jockington, maybe he will grow arms. Like, what if he, what if he's a Pokemon? Like there's the Snivy line in Pokemon where it progressively loses its limbs as it evolves. What if Jockington is actually a Pokemon, but he does it in reverse, where every time he evolves, he gains limbs? And by the end of the game, he's like a centipede. God, that is horrifying. Why did I say that?
Second time, Jockington. First with the Titan, and now with the Prophecy. What the fuck? Why is Jockington Toby's weird little foreshadowing device? This is 2 times, and Jockington doesn't even speak that much. It would make sense if a character like Susie was used to foreshadow some stuff, because she has like 9,000 lines of dialogue. Yeah. But Jockington has 39 lines of dialogue.
And 8 talk sprites that are all exactly the same.
Why does he get 2 different instances of foreshadowing? What makes Jockington's foreshadowing even stranger is the fact that this entire prophecy panel about him growing a beard was literally foreshadowed by Toby Fox in 2021.
Jockington grows a beard. Spoiler.
I'm gonna lose my fucking mind. What is up with this?
I completely forgot Toby Fox literally said that. Wow, okay. It's come to, after all this time, I've really come to the conclusion that Toby Fox is like one of those creators that, like, he's like my little brother. He can't help but spoil you on things. Like, talking about my little brother, like, whenever we're watching, like, a show or a movie, he will always look up spoilers, and then it, like, literally kills him to not talk about them and spoil things that happen in the movie or the show or whatever. But with Toby Fox, he spoils the most seemingly random things that we ourselves don't even pay attention to because they don't seem like they matter. Which honestly is probably the better thing to do.
This guy, does he know the prophecy? Is he Gaster or some shit? I don't know. What good reason is there for him to foreshadow the things he does? Probably because it's funny. That's just likely the actual reason. But genuinely,
yeah, I believe it.
This could legitimately mean that Jockington not only knows the prophecy, but even more considering the Titan stuff. Ralsei's gonna try to explain Dark Worlds or something to him in Chapter 5, and he'll just reply with, "Yeah, I know," before turning into a goner in front of us. Now, going back to that church line, there's something else interesting about it besides the foreshadowing, and that's that he mentions he cannot be covered in hair. What does the prophecy state will happen? That Jockington will grow a beard. Which, covers a part of your face in hair. I swear to God, Jockington might prove that this prophecy cannot be fulfilled anyway and can be broken. Now,
I didn't even think of that. I mean, I was gonna say something about, like the impossible being made possible, but no, showing that, like, the prophecy says Jockington will grow a beard, and then he never does, as like a way of showing that it's not all knowing and stuff like that. God, if that's the actual meaning behind it, God, that would be so beautiful.
Oh, if it was only a case of something like this specifically relating to Jockington, I don't think it would be too important, but there's actually another panel that might suggest the same exact thing. That's right, 2 parts of the prophecy to prove my demented theories. I'm really going all out. And
is there another Jockington panel?
What, were you expecting something cool? That's right, the singular part of the prophecy stating that Queen's chariot cannot be stopped may also prove that the prophecy is breakable. This specific panel is referring to this scene in Chapter 2 after you fight Birdley with Noelle, where you go into a car with Queen and you can hit all the other cars with Queen's car, hence the whole her chariot cannot be stopped thing.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, though, in this exact same scene, the car does get stopped at a traffic jam, which forces you to meet German 985. I'm not sure how important this would be if it wasn't for the fact that it's in the exact same scene that the prophecy is referring to. Not to mention the fact that the car fucking explodes later. And also, this proves that the weird route isn't the prophecy either, considering this scene doesn't even happen in the weird route. There's no chariot to speak of. I also think it should be worth mentioning that even though these probably aren't also Queen's car or anything, every car in the game that looks similar is stopped or can be stopped in some way. We see some similar cars in the background leading into Spamton's shop that are broken
They're pretty
down.
much stopped,
and in
yeah.
Queen's room in Castletown, there's another identical car that can be stopped by interacting with a traffic light, which is a very strange thing to include for no reason.
Man, if this whole thing boils down to the fact that, you know, Jockington proves that, you know, the prophecy can be stopped. God. I remember, you know, people talking about, you know, like, why certain characters, you know, in an older video, about why certain characters had talk sprites over others. And, you know, the whole idea that, you know, certain characters with talk sprites were important. And the whole idea that, oh, you know, Jockington's funny because he has, like, 8 identical talk sprites. Like, I'm still holding on hope that we have, like, in a future Dark World, we actually have more people show up. Like, or just have Noelle come back so that we can, you know, experience, you know, having more people in the Dark World again. But if Jockington's inclusion in the prophecy boils down to the fact of he's just like the MacGuffin pointing towards, oh, you know, the prophecy isn't all-knowing and stuff like that, that would just be perfect. Actually, you know what would be even more perfect? If, you know, they come to this conclusion, like, oh yeah, Jockington can't grow a beard, the prophecy is wrong, it can be stopped and stuff like that. And they go throughout the game, actually stop the prophecy, happy ending for all, and then literally the last thing happening in the game is Jockington appears saying, hey, look what I grew overnight. And he actually has the beard, and then we'll show, oh god, the prophecy actually was happening, but we still stopped it. What happened? You know, something really stupid and funny like that would be absolutely hilarious.
Literally, why can you even do this if it's not supposed to be hinting towards this? I'm probably reading too much into it, but it's just weird. So not only does Jockington
yeah, it definitely is
prove that the prophecy is breakable, but Queen does too. And to top all that off, in a literal sense, Susie breaks the prophecy at the end of Chapter 4. She punches the panel that says the ending, and it shatters, and the ending literally never appears again, unlike what we've seen with other panels that would show up as the next panel after being broken.
Yeah.
So why doesn't the prophecy change if it's already been broken? Ralsei was hoping that it would change, implying that's a possibility, but also throughout the chapter and in the ending,
or implying that he
states
thought
that
it was
likely
a
won't
possibility.
change no matter what they do. And to be honest, even though I understand his fears here, why would the prophecy change? It's already been written. It's not a living, breathing organism that's gonna change based on your choices. It's a prophecy. It's a prediction. If Jockington was thrown into an active volcano before the events of the game and he died, the prophecy wouldn't change Jockington grows the beard to Jockington fucking dies. That doesn't really make any sense. Also, the shadow crystals hint towards this as well. If you use a shadow crystal in the final prophecy room, it states that no matter how you move the crystal, the text never warps or anything, similar to how nothing you do can really change what's written. Alright, hey, future me here again to add a little more to this part, because I feel like I can clarify what I'm saying here a bit better and also address some other sides to the argument. I responded to a tweet with a summary of this whole idea about Queen's Chariot, and I got a response that kind of made me want to add this section in altogether. So thanks. Basically, the person responding didn't agree with my interpretation of the Queen's Chariot prophecy for a couple reasons. One, it would be a bit underwhelming if the truth about the prophecy was foreshadowed in this way. Two, the interpretation I went with is too literal. It's not saying that the Queen's Chariot can't stop with its brakes or something, but that nothing can stand in its way. And three, the Queen could have just ran through these cars or made the chariot not explode or something. Can't lie, these are valid points, so I want to tackle them a bit.
Okay, the brakes bit, that I totally agree with. But at the same time, like, she still did stop. Like, if it was if it, like, wasn't a big deal for, you know, her to just plow through all those other cars of traffic, why would she stop the car and send Chris out to, you know, change the lights to get rid of the traffic? Like, why was she so worried about it?
But spoiler alert, I'm not really going to fully debunk anything here because that's not the type of argument I want to make. And also because this is mainly about interpretation more than anything else, and it's kind of hard to debunk interpretations unless there is definitive proof to say otherwise.
Yeah.
As far as I know, there really isn't in this case. So for the first point, it would be underwhelming. I don't really have too much of an argument here, considering this is entirely subjective. To you, it might be underwhelming, but to me, it's kind of cool. I think it's a good example of the small things that Toby uses to foreshadow things like this. Deltarune doesn't just have a Chekhov's gun, it's Chekhov's fucking gun shop. The only thing that I will really argue here is the idea that this is the only foreshadowing for the prophecy being breakable. First of all, we still have 3 more chapters to go, so there's plenty more room for foreshadowing.
Definitely.
But also, as I've already mentioned, there's the whole Susie thing, where she literally breaks the prophecy, which feels about as clear as day when it comes to foreshadowing. But to be
yeah, if anything, that is very, like, Granted, I know it was the whole scene, and the whole scene is like really good, but that just screams about it being symbolic.
To be fair, I didn't mention that in the post that this person is replying to, so I understand why they wouldn't bring that up. Also, I just want to quickly say, I don't think that the Queen's Chariot thing would ever be, like, confirmed as foreshadowing. Like, I don't think Ralsei's gonna be like,
Hey, Chris, did you know that one part of the prophecy that was missable about Queen's Chariot? Yeah, that actually proved that it was breakable.
Yeah, that's very nitpicky and very much screams just, that's for us to figure out, not for the characters.
Wow, I didn't know that.
it's not gonna happen. I don't know why that would happen, but it's not like all instances of foreshadowing get confirmed or anything. I just think it's maybe an instance of foreshadowing and nothing more. For the second point, here's where things get a bit messy. Deltarune's prophecy, for as specific as it may seem sometimes, is also very open to interpretation. It's why there's so much discourse about it. Some people think Noelle is the girl, and some people think it's Susie, while some forego both of them altogether and think that it's someone else instead. And you know what? These
it's actually
are valid interpretations. But at the end of the day, that's what they are, interpretations. Hell, this entire section of the video about the prophecy is an example of this. Jockington grows the beard can be interpreted in multiple different ways, including growing a literal beard, but also something else that we'll get to in just a bit. It almost kind of parallels Undertale's prophecy in a way. Some people believe that the angel in that prophecy would go to the underground and shatter the barrier, freeing monster kind, while others began to believe that the angel was an angel of death instead. So what does that mean about Queen's Chariot? Well, this is just another example of how differing opinions can lead to different conclusions. I interpreted this part of the prophecy as her car literally not being able to be stopped, but that's not the only way to interpret it, and it'd be weird to say that. That's just my interpretation of the prophecy, and considering it kind of lines up with other foreshadowing about the prophecy being breakable, I just kind of ran with it and didn't look back. But yeah, I can totally see this being interpreted as nothing can stand in its way. That's totally fair. So yeah, I don't have an argument there. It's all a matter of interpretation, and there's no definitive way to say anyone's right or wrong here, considering, as far as I know, there's not definitive proof for either side. And finally, for the third point, that Queen could just kind of run through the cars and make the chariot not explode. I don't really have a counter argument here, other than the fact that I just think that's kind of lame. Actually, whatever, I have something that might work. Maybe Queen could just make Chris drive through these cars. It would make sense considering the other cars that we saw, but I have no idea where the idea of she could just make it not explode even came from. I mean, based on her dialogue here, it doesn't really seem like she was just itching for it to blow into smithereens for...
Yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff explodes around her because she wants it to. Again, the whole safety glass versus exploding glass. But that very much, she forces them out of the car because it was about to explode. And the way she talks about it was like, oh, it hadn't exploded in a while. Like, she was expecting it to explode and was shocked that it hadn't exploded yet.
For no reason. She says,
I was just concerned because it hadn't exploded yet.
That sounds less like Queen had control over when it explodes and more like it was just gonna happen for some reason. And I'd still say that if we're going with the idea that no obstacles can stop the car in the prophecy, then, I don't know, I'd say it going kablooey with funny explosion sound effect 72 is kind of an obstacle. So yeah, that's some clarification and more argument shit about the stupid point. Back to the normal video again. So the prophecy is breakable even though it won't change, and this is partially proven by Jockington of all characters, who might also possess knowledge of the full prophecy for some reason. But Jockington's panel of the prophecy being about him actually growing a beard isn't the only way we can interpret that panel. Look at the wording here. Jockington grows the beard, not a beard. It's very specific wording that leads me to believe that it could also be referring to the idea of growing the beard. So to determine the meaning of Jockington growing the beard, let's talk about Star Trek. Deltarune has connections to Toy Story and Star Trek now. The concept of growing the beard refers to a TV series that has a noticeable increase in quality. This term came to be because of Star Trek The Next Generation, a show whose first 2 seasons did not have the best reception, but in season 3, this show has a jump in quality. Now, why is this idea called growing the beard?
Because, oh god, I'm forgetting his name now, but one of the characters, he grows a beard.
Because the actor for Commander Riker, Jonathan
Commander
Frakes,
Riker, that's it,
grew a beard at the same time. So what does this mean for Jockington? Well, it could very well mean that Jockington could grow more important in future chapters, and there's actually some evidence for this. First off, he has a dialogue sprite for some reason. Other characters in Hometown like Monster Teen and Snowy don't, and dialogue sprites for Lightners seem to be mostly reserved for characters that'll be important in some way. Characters like Asgore, Sans, Birdly, Undyne, and Noelle. But also, Jockington's name is part of a list of characters that get a special reaction from
Very,
Dr.
very
Wingdings
interesting,
during the Goner
yep.
Maker segment at the beginning of Chapter 1 where you create your vessel. But what's interesting about this list is who else is mentioned. You have characters like Chris and Susie, but also characters like Birdly, Noelle, Toriel, and Gerson. All of these characters are Lightners who have appeared in a Dark World during the events of Deltarune, with the exception of Gerson, I guess, because even though he is in the first and third sanctuaries in Chapter 4, he technically isn't a Lightner here, as Valse states
He's
that
a
he's a
Darkner,
pattern after the
technically,
memory
yeah.
of a Lightner, but whatever, no one fucking cares. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Considering it's all but confirmed that Chapter 5 will at least have a Dark World in Asgore's Flower Shop, that lines up considering Asgore is also on the list. So using this list, we can identify who else will be appearing in Dark Worlds later on, and considering this list includes Jockington, we could say that he will be in a future Dark World, making him more important. And you know what? Fuck it. Connect this shit to Goner Jockington. I'd say if Jockington becomes a Goner, that's him becoming pretty damn important. Therefore, he grows the beard. Now, I want to take a moment.
I mean, okay, so thinking about it, maybe that's just it. Maybe him growing the beard is what happens when he becomes a goner. Because, it's otherwise impossible, but from everything we've seen, the goner sprites are usually slightly different from, their regular world counterparts. Who's to say that the beard isn't what's, the main difference between, Jockington and Goner Jockington?
Want to address an idea I saw a lot in the comments of my previous
What if
Jockington
no?
video, and that's that the Jockington prophecy might not even be part of the prophecy, and that this is just here because of some graffiti or a random drawing of Jockington or something that the Dark World manifested. It's an interesting idea, but honestly, it does not really make sense. Throughout Chapter 4, Valse states that the prophecy will never change. This likely means that it also has not changed since it was written, considering Ralsei knows the entire prophecy. And never once does he bring up any part of the prophecy as sounding different or new or something, which you'd think he would do if he saw something that wasn't in the prophecy before, considering his hopes that the prophecy would change. Also, the NPCs nearby also don't really hint to this not actually being a part of the prophecy either.
Yeah, because they
especially
talk
it's something
about
that
it.
their ancestors foretold. Also, they say that the truth is written in glass. This panel, along with the rest of the prophecy, is written in glass. Also, we can't forget that this is a prophecy that's been supposedly foretold by time and space. I don't think it would be that easily malleable.
What does
So I think
that
it's pretty
mean?
safe to assume that this has always been part of the prophecy. That's kind of where I'm at when it comes to Jockington's place in the prophecy. If this panel is supposed to be interpreted literally as Jockington growing a beard, then it might actually prove that the prophecy is breakable, but it can also be interpreted as him growing more important at Deltarune. Also, he might know the fucking prophecy. Why would Toby write that?
I don't know!
Moving on
It's Toby! Does he need a reason to do anything?
to easily the most discussed topic relating to Jockington as of late, and that's his connections to Friend. Releasing Chapter 5 isn't gonna save us. The Deltarune community is just insane, face it already. I'm not gonna fully explain everything going on with Friend, because that would take a while, and this video is already way too fucking long. But I'll give you a quick rundown if you aren't up to speed. I highly recommend looking into it yourself, though. There's a good video on it by Spooky Dude, and a good document on it by the same person who made the Oblivion Theory. I'll link both in the description. Basically, to summarize it, a Friend is this weird fucking cat creature that is likely related to the mysterious Tale of Hell mentioned in the prophecy, and may also be connected to the pointed tale that this NPC in Chapter 4 mentions.
And again, in the other Jockington Conspiracy Theory video I reacted to, there was the whole thing that apparently Temmie at one point tweeted out a tweet saying that, cats' tails are snakes in disguise. God, that disturbing. And I went on this whole thing trying to figure out, wait, did Catty actually have a tail? Were they going to fuse into like a chimera or something like that? It's weird.
Friend is connected to the shelter. Weird shit is going on with the shelter. Based on this dialogue, the tale might be Friend's tale. Friend might also be the main villain of Deltarune or something, and it might be connected to Chris's trauma and Dessa's disappearance. I'm not really sure. But out of all of that shit, the most important takeaways for the stupid-ass conspiracy are that Friend is a cat and the whole Tale of Hell thing. So, how am I going to connect Deltarune's potential big evil creature thing to Jockington? Well, remember that room in the third sanctuary that had the Jockington prophecy again?
Yeah.
I mentioned that this room could be found in the Princess Ribbon climbing minigame room, but what I didn't mention were the other two parts of the prophecy that could also be found here. Those two parts being, they'll hear the ring of heaven's call, and they'll see the Tale of Hell take crawl. Why the hell is Jockington here? There's no reason for this prophecy to appear here again. It's in this specific room, at this specific spot. It's so secret, in a room that also talks about stuff that likely relates to Friend.
Again, I saw this one picture on Twitter somebody did where it was literally that, where like Jockington just kind of not dissolves, but turns into like the cat tail or the scythe or whatever. It was really disturbing. Ugh.
I guess by this logic, Jockington could also be connected to whatever this is. But luckily, the friend connections don't stop there for some fucking reason.
Well,
Remember
of course
how
they
Toby
don't.
randomly talked about Jockington growing a beard in 2021? Well, that's potentially not the only foreshadowing relating to Jockington, because what the hell is this tweet, Temmie? The tail of a cat is just a snake in disguise? Why did you tweet this? This is a couple months before Chapter 1 came out, but considering we don't actually know when Chapter 1 started development, and that Deltarune was a game Toby dreamed of and continued to think of before and during Undertale's development, and given the fact that Toby stated the entire story had already been written by October of 2018, who fucking knows? This could be connected, I don't know. When it could also very...
Yeah, and who's to say, you know, at this point, again, the fact that there were the 3 different mics, all based on, like, various different fan theories that we'd come up with, things can be added to this story. Who's to say that Toby won't rewrite things given how persistent the community has been?
well be connected to is Cat Mike, who's based off of a popular fan interpretation of Mike prior to the recent chapters. This design kind of mirrors what we know about Friend, and look at their fucking tail! Why does it have a mouth? And why does it kind of look like Jockington's mouth? This wasn't part of a popular Mike design or anything, so I don't know what it could be referring to other than this tweet, which could be referring to more stuff in Deltarune. And you know what? Fuck it, I'm having a mental breakdown over this shit. Friend's eyes and
as you do.
A negative color filter are green and blue, like fucking Jockington. What is...
Oh, that's what that meant! I remember in the other Jockington video I watched, they pointed it out, they did that thing at the very end of the video where they reversed the Friend's colors, and they made a whole deal about it. And I just didn't get it, like, at all, because it was a split-second joke before the video ended. I never even connected the dots that the eyes were the same color.
Does Jockington look like in a negative color filter? A lesbian. These aren't the same colors at all, but it's kinda close, I guess. Jockington is always smiling in a stupid-ass way, similar to Friend. He's covering his eyes with sunglasses. Why are his eyes pink and yellow? Friend probably knows some shit about the prophecy, and Jockington might too. He's got a pointed fucking tail. The devil offered shit to people at a fucking tree as a goddamn snake. I am losing my damn mind.
Oh,
Well,
God.
folks, looks like we're having some technical difficulties. In the meantime, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the letter 7.
Letter 7, what is this, knockoff Sesame Street?
Okay, meltdown over. Let's take a step back and a step to the right and talk about Caddy. If any character in this classroom besides Chris and Noelle would have any relation to Friend, it would likely be Caddy. For starters, she's a cat and she's got pink and yellow in her design. Also, similar to Jockington, it's pretty safe to believe that she'll become more important in future chapters because she's also in the Goner Maker list and also has dialogue sprites. But easily one of the most damning pieces of evidence is this tidbit about how Chris and Caddy tried to summon a demon when they were younger. If we're to believe everything we're thinking about Friend right now, then Chris is already connected to Friend, who has ties to Hell. You know, the place of demons and shit. Caddy's ties to occult stuff feel like a pretty big piece of evidence that she could also be connected to Friend. But you know who else she has very close ties to? Well, obviously, Jockington. This could, by proximity, make Jockington a part of this as well. Add all of his random connections to Friend, and I can kind of see it, honestly. Caddy and Jockington are very close, so it makes sense that if one of them is connected to Friend, both of them are.
I mean, the both of them are friends. Maybe that's just it. Friend is because they're friends.
I mean, as Jockington says, Caddy and Jockington are always partners. Now, what do I mean by them being connected to Friend? Well, for starters, I don't think that Caddy or Jockington are Friend. I think Friend is a weird little beast from hell that just kind of exists. It does not have a familiar identity or anything. It is a new creature, not an existing character. I don't think Jockington and Caddy are fusing to become Friend or something. I just only see that being the case. It would be funny, but I don't know. Though who knows, maybe it is. Maybe that's why Jockington is sitting behind Caddy in class to be like her tail or some shit, and he's the tail of hell and Caddy's friend. I don't fucking know. No. But I just don't know why Toby would literally ever write this. So how are they possibly connected? Well, to be honest, I don't really know. There's not a whole lot of conclusive evidence to really say, so I have no concrete idea on how Jockington and Caddy could be connected. But it could be that they're part of the reason why Friend exists in the first place. Some people have said that Friend could be a Gaster experiment given its ties to the shelter, and also its name being Device_Friend in some cases, but I don't fully buy this, and if it is some Gaster experiment, then I don't think it's that Gaster is inherently evil and he wanted to make a scary being to kidnap children because he's William Afton.
God, wouldn't that be a turn of events? Turns out that all this time, like, Gaster has been such a giant question mark over Undertale and Deltarune. But it turns out, then, like, in the year of our Lord, 2025 or 2026, depending on when these chapters come out, it's revealed that Gaster all along was one giant Five Nights at Freddy's crossover.
No, it was probably some experiment gone wrong or something. I generally see Gaster as some evil villain, given all of his dialogue so far, but who knows, maybe that's just one fragment of Gaster or something, and there's some other Gaster that is evil and is in the shelter and is G-Man or some shit, considering we don't really know when Deltarune takes place in relation to Gaster being shattered across time and space. But given the description of the egg that is likely related to Friend from Noelle's blog, I'm inclined to believe that Friend is just some weird creature that appeared one day. Unless that egg is related to Gaster, which it could be, because it could be related to the Forgotten Man. I don't know, this Gaster stuff gets convoluted quickly.
The Gaster lore? I mean, yeah. I mean, the lore itself isn't too convoluted. It's when we try to figure out how it connects to literally everything else that when it starts getting convoluted.
Fuck you, Gaster. Aww. So maybe Caddy had something to do with bringing Friend into the real world, especially considering its ties to cat petters, and Caddy also has some ties to that, considering she and the other Caddy gave this copy of Cat Petter's RPG to Asriel. To be honest, I don't really know. So my conclusion on the Jockington Friend conspiracy is that it's very inconclusive. It would be funny, and there's a strange amount of evidence and connections that can be made, but none of it really leads to any answers. Which makes sense, we don't even have any real fucking answers about what Friend is in the first place. Is
Friend actually going to be, you know, a character, or is it just going to be like a reappearing, like, motif and theme throughout the entire games? Like, are we going to get a Friend inside us?
But I doubt Jockington is Friend, but he could be connected to Friend in some way, especially given Caddy's connections to Friend, and the fact that she and Jockington are very close friends. Basically, no real answers here, but honestly something worth looking into a little more. Now, how can I connect this to Goner Jockington? Jockington is turning into a Goner because Friend is like a parasite inside of him, and it's wearing him like a fucking skin suit and slowly turning him into Goner.
Yeah, Friend
Jockington has a friend inside him. What?
Oh god, no, that was too much, no!
Why is it shaking? Oh god, it's a Toy Story theory.
Oh god, the theories, they're multiplying, they're dividing like bacteria.
That's right, it all comes back to Toy Story. After all, Deltarune is the best Toy Story movie. There's not really a whole lot of connections here, I'm just including this because it's funny. First of all, Woody says, "There's a snake in my boots," as one of his voice box line things. That's right, Jockington confirms Woody theory. But also, there is a character in Toy Story named Snake, who's a green and purple snake toy. Not the same colors as Jockington, but a little similar, I guess. Purple's kinda like blue. Similar to Jockington as of now, Snake was a pretty unimportant character in Toy Story. I'm pretty sure they had, like, one fucking line in the entire series, and it was them saying, "Ow!" Snake is also usually seen with another toy, Robot. They're even partners when building a podium. They're always partners, huh? What does Jockington say in Chapter 1? "Chris, you know Jockington and Caddy are always partners." That's right, Jockington's from Toy Story. But hold on, you may be thinking,
God, why Woody theory? I love Woody theory, but why does it have to get more stupid the more, like... It's like, honestly, the more it tries to survive, like, upcoming, you know, chapters, it's like becoming its inbred. It's having to survive while, like, mating with all these other theories, and it's just deteriorating the entire time.
Was Snake even in any other Toy Story movies other than the first one?
No.
Yeah, for like 3 seconds. He appears in like 2 scenes in Toy Story 2, and then he disappears in Toy Story 3.
Oh.
Literally only ever mentioned one more time by Woody.
I mean, I assume, Toy Story 2, since that takes place very soon after Toy Story 1. But Toy Story 3, that's many years later after a lot of Andy's toys have been sold off, so yeah.
Not much really changed without Snake's presence. I'm trying to connect this to Goner Jockington, if you couldn't tell. Snake disappears, nothing really happens because of it. This foreshadows how Jockington is a fucking Goner, even though Snake didn't disappear because he died, he was just given away. And you know what? In the Toy Story game, he attacks Woody at one point, proving that Snake is evil, and because Snake is Jockington, Jockington is friend. Please ignore the fact that Snake was only attacking Woody because he thought that Woody killed Buzz or some shit. That's my theory. That's my evidence. Give me $1 million. I'm right. Okay, no, the Toy Story connections
like
aren't
$1
really
million.
real, but I mean, maybe you can make some stupid bullshit out of that. I don't know. I just thought it was kind of funny, so I wanted to include it. But that's the current standing on this whole Jockington conspiracy as of now. Thank fucking God it's over. This is not an exaggeration. This video has been haunting me for a fucking month now. It's always there in my brain, whether or not it's at the forefront of my thoughts or if it's the shadow, the backside of my mind. It's always there. No human being has any need to analyze Jockington as much as I have over the past month. I created a monster with the Goddard Jockington theory, and it can't be killed. This must be how Dr. Frankenstein felt. All of this analysis, I feel like Jockington has had a permanent impact on me as a human being. Actually, you know what? That impact started far before this saga on the channel. Maybe I was destined to be the Jockington guy. Ever since the Spampton sweepstakes, I've been talking like Jockington in the messages I send to my friends because it's just really funny. So I guess it turns out this road was determined for me long ago. This is part of the prophecy. Ragenade will make videos on Jockington and go insane. Genuinely had dreams about this fucking snake. He won't leave me alone. But in all of this, I've made a different discovery. I've found who's with us in the dark.
Jockington, of course.
No, rather, it's Deltarune. Deltarune is inherently a game about games. For all the lore that the egg rooms might be building to, they seem to be equally about the creative process and the concept of secrets in gaming as a whole. There's also all the music stuff in Chapter 4 and a whole other slew of things I haven't even mentioned. Deltarune is a celebration of art. Sure, it does deal with the negative effects of escapism and how it can be a form of trauma suppression, but it's not black and white like that. Escapism can lead to creativity, can lead to some of the best and most important experiences of your entire life, and it can bring you closer to the people around you. That is the thing that you shouldn't forget. In a world where enjoying things like video games can be stigmatized so much, you shouldn't forget that enjoying these experiences and even being really moved and even changed by just a video game is a totally normal thing, and all of these experiences are things that you will carry with you and shape into your being as you live your life. When the light is running low, when things don't look too happy for yourself, remind yourself of the things that have given you joy. The light in your soul mentioned in Don't Forget is the culmination of the positive aspects of who you are, the experiences you've had through art and how those shape you in your life and how you can use those experiences to further your own life. The light in your soul is creativity or analysis or thinking deeper about something or whatever you have gotten from a piece of art that you have consumed. So in that sense, Jockington is with me in the dark. It seems strange to say that a fucking snake with 30 lines of dialogue that talks like he just learned what words are has had any sort of impact on me, but this will technically be an experience I will carry with me for the rest of my life. It's part of my experience with one of my favorite games ever now. So, thanks, Jockington. Genuinely. It sucks that you're going to be wiped from existence in Chapter 5, but whatever.
Oh God. Okay. Yeah, I can quite honestly. Yeah, that video was so much better than the other Jockington Conspiracy video I watched. And again, just with knowing Toby Fox, like there is so like you can go so heavily in either way, saying, "Oh, this is all just a joke that like the community is just taking way out of hand." Or, oh no, this is actually something that is going to happen, and Toby Fox, you know, just being Toby Fox, that's the reason it's happening. Or, alternatively, it may have, you know, not been intentional, and then because, you know, the community is going so hard into it, it might actually become a real thing. Poor Jockington. The community will destroy him. But yeah, that is definitely going to be it for now. So yeah, of course, as always, I hope you guys liked. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you have not, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.